Hi, I'm Jan with Jan's Jewelry Supplies. Welcome to another soldering video. Today we're going to be making this beautiful Egyptian bib necklace, and the earrings will be on a separate video. This is one of my favorite pieces. Because this is a detailed piece, we will be blowing it up and showing you each section of the necklace. I will be using 300-degree solder and a heat gun since these are plated settings. I'm going to go ahead and lay out my pieces the way they need to be transferred over to the Play-Doh. The best thing you can do is probably to look at the first portion of the video where each section is blown up so you can see what the stone placement is. And then you can just turn them over and transfer them to the Play-Doh. I'm laying my Play-Doh out in almost a U shape to accommodate the size and the shape of the bib necklace. And then I'm just going to roll it out flat. The first thing I'm going to lay out is the 28SS rhinestone chain. I'm just going to get it in a nice U shape, or basically a shape to go around the neck. And once I get it even on both sides, then I'll start with my other stone placement. Once I have my chain laid out and I have it even, I'm going to push it down into the Play-Doh just a little bit, and then I want to find my center point. I'm just going to count the stones down and find my center point, and that's where I'll begin laying out the very bottom center of the necklace. I will start there and then I'll work my way out. I'm now just taking the stones that I have laid out, basically the whole necklace is laid out, and I'm just going to start transferring them to the Play-Doh. Just turn them upside down and transfer them to the Play-Doh. If the rhinestone chain at the bottom does not touch the settings, the bottom of each setting, I need to adjust the angle of the settings a little bit. You can just adjust the angle, and you want them to be as close as possible, so when the overall visual is the necklace is the same on both sides. But you can turn them just a little bit to where they will meet the chain at the bottom. I'm going to begin soldering these two sides and the center portion. I'm going to solder each little section from top to bottom, but I am not going to be soldering them from side to side. So like right now you can see basically five columns. Those columns will be soldered top to bottom, but you're not going to solder them together. If you solder them together, then you're not going to have any movement in the necklace, and it's not going to work. So the little sections will be soldered, and then they will be soldered to the top rhinestone chain. I will come in later and put the bottom rhinestone chain on. Now that I have this portion soldered, I'm going to go in and start laying out more stones on each side. I'm just going to transfer the stones that I already have laid out with my necklace and just place them accordingly. I have several more columns laid out on each side, and before I begin soldering those pieces, I'm going to lay the rhinestone chain out again and make sure that these pieces are going to touch the rhinestone chain. And once again, if it does not touch the chain, then you're going to have to adjust them just a little bit. And again, when I begin soldering, I'm going to solder the columns from top to bottom, but not side to side. And now that I have those pieces soldered, I am going to go ahead and start placing the rest of the stones all the way to the end of each side of the necklace. I now have all of the stones laid out, and I'm going to test the rhinestone chain around the edge of it again and make sure the pieces do touch. And when I solder, I am going to again solder them from top to bottom, but not from side to side. Now that I have all my pieces soldered together, I'm going to go ahead and pull it out of the Play-Doh and make sure that it is solid. And because the Play-Doh is drying out a little bit, I'm just going to take the Play-Doh and I'm going to flip it over to where it's not dry anymore. I want my chain to stick to the Play-Doh just a little bit. So I'm just going to set it aside and flip the Play-Doh over. I'm going to roll the Play-Doh out again just to be sure that I do have a smooth, flat surface. Now I'm going to take the piece and I'm going to turn it over and lay it down in the Play-Doh again. And I want to make sure when I do lay it down that it is even on both sides. Before I push it down into the Play-Doh, I will want to test the rhinestone chain around it and make any adjustments if I need to. I've now laid the necklace down and it seems to be pretty even. I'm going to start laying the rhinestone chain around it to double check it before I start soldering. If I have to do any adjustments as I lay them down, I'll just make the adjustments as I go. I'm just going to take the rhinestone chain and attach it at the very top of the necklace and just start wrapping it around all the way to the other side. And so far everything seems to be touching, it all seems to be even. All of the columns of the necklace are touching the rhinestone chain at the bottom. I'm just going to begin soldering the bottom of each column to the rhinestone chain. And when you solder the columns to the rhinestone chain, you want to try and solder to an actual rhinestone in the chain. Just going to go all the way around the necklace and solder every column. When I said you want to solder to a rhinestone in the chain, what I actually meant was the metal, the cup that is surrounding the rhinestone. Now that the rhinestone chain is soldered to the bottom of the necklace, I'm going to add some jump rings to each side. They're just going to be flat up against the necklace. I'm actually using Play-Doh to brace them in place, and they will be just soldered on both ends. I wanted this necklace to be pretty from the back as well, so I'm just taking a couple of strips of rhinestone chain and first soldering a scarab to each one. Then I'm going to attach them to the back of the necklace. I'm going to brace the necklace in the Play-Doh, and then I'm going to solder these strips of chain on there. And with it flipped over, I am just going to solder them to the very top of the jump rings. You just turn your rhinestone chain over and solder it, one on each side, and it's basically just going to be centered on the jump ring. Alright, I have my rhinestone chain in place. I'm just making sure that it's even. Now I'm just going to take my heat gun and a little bit of solder and solder those on. Now that I have those two pieces soldered on, all I have left to do is to add a fold over clasp. And to do that, all you do is loop it around your jump ring and then just clamp that little loop shut. These are some of the easiest clasps to use. They're the easiest to attach, and they hold up very, very well. And there you have it. With the fold over clasp attached, I'm now finished with the necklace. All I have to do is wash it with a little bit of soap and water, and I'm done. Thank you for watching our soldering video. Stay tuned for a soldering video for the earrings that match this necklace.